Hello, hello. Welcome to Heart of the Tribe. My name is Shel Wagner. So glad you're able to come and join me today, whether you're able to join me live or if you're just watching the recording. I'm so glad you're here. It has been a minute since I have done a video, and that is just because a lot has happened in my life. Robert and I moved. We bought a home up at the base of the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. We're so glad to be here. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and it's rather remote. It took a long time to even get internet at our house. It was very surprising. It's a completely different atmosphere living in more farm country, more mountainous country. It's everything moves at a little bit slower pace, which is wonderful, and we love it. We're just kind of getting adjusted, finding, you find when you move, you find that perfect place where everything's going to be, and then that's not the perfect place later, and it's got to be moved, and just all kinds of things like that going on. One of the other things that I wanted to do before I really got back up and going with my with more YouTube videos and all is I wanted to finish my book, which I did. And I'm going to show you guys a cover of that, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but it's available on Amazon. A link is in the description. And it was a big accomplishment for me to write that the first book of a series of 3 that I'm doing. So the first one, I really just went in and did a lot of history of the family of Yasharel, the family of Zion, all about, from before Abraham, actually into the antediluvian world, and looking at a lot of pieces of the puzzle from ancient scripts that don't normally get discussed. So I was happy to be able to do that. And that first book really zeroes in on Abraham a lot, and what it meant to be the one person that was called out from amongst the Kasdim. And so anyway, we'll talk about that more later. Today, and one of the other things I'm doing with my second book, which is going to be called Tribal Synergy, what I'm really looking at is the body of Yahusha as reflected. Oh, thank you, Carrie. Good to see you. I've missed everybody, and I've missed making videos. So the second book, Tribal Synergy, is really going to focus in on the body of Yahusha as reflected through the 12 tribes and how it corresponds with our natural physical body systems, because every tribe lines up with a body system. And one thing I've been doing is coming up with my own. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I've been an aromatherapist for quite some time, and I've been working with essential oils for decades. and I've done blending, but I've usually just kept everything to myself, immediate family, immediate friends. But I have come up now. This is my Heart of the Tribe line. I don't know if you can see it very well at all. Let me see if I can get it to show up. Not really. It's not showing up on my camera. I doubt that it's showing up on y'all's. So anyway, I've got several of them done so far. I've done the tribe of Simeon, which is the endocrine system. I've done the tribe of Asher, which is our skin system. Let me see who else I've got. I've got the tribe of Naphtali, the muscular skeletal system. So I've got a link to all the oils. So far, I have them on my Buy Me a Cup of Coffee site underneath the shop, but I am working on my website, and hopefully we'll have that up for you very soon. All right, so without any further delay, let me go ahead and add today's presentation. So I have been working on this series of kings and prophets for so long now. Thank you, Carrie. I'm so glad. Carrie says she's she's going to be ordering some essential oils today and looking forward to using with them. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I appreciate everybody's support, purchasing the book, the oils, everything. It's such a blessing in my life, and I really appreciate the support. So let me go ahead and add my presentation to the stage. So where we're at is the very last chapter of Second Kings. And what I found amazing with this is that I've got this in my way. Hold on. Forgot how to drive my PowerPoint. So what I found amazing about this is if you look at the very last chapter in Second Kings 25, it's almost a mirror image of the scriptures in Jeremiah 52. So what precedes Jeremiah 52 is Jeremiah 50 and 51, which deals with the destruction of Babylon. So before we really go into 2 Kings 25 or Jeremiah 52, I wanted to spend some time in Jeremiah. Chapter 50 is what we're going to be covering today, because they are such long chapters and they correspond with, if you're looking at Isaiah 13, if you're looking at Revelation chapter 17 and 18, if you're looking, let me see, Matthew 24, 25, Luke, I think it is 21 and Mark 13. All of these things are dealing with the very end of days. And that is what we're going to start just looking at this one. So here we are, Jeremiah 50, verse 1. The word that Yahuah spoke against Babel and against the last land of the Chaldean by Jeremiah the prophet, Jeremiah the prophet, right? So the first thing we're looking at is this Chaldean. So who in the world are the Chaldean? So Chaldea was a very small country in the southern part of Mesopotamia. The Chaldeans were an independent nation state that was one of the first to be captured by Babylon when Babylon became that superpower and was doing what superpowers do and trying to take over the world, right? They assimilated into Babylon, but ended up becoming the ruling elite of Babylon. Very interesting. A captured people that then, they come in and they end up looking just like Babylon and end up becoming, because of who they were and their nature, becoming a ruling elite class. Okay. They were known for their secret societies. So here you see, Disney's Club 33, the door of Disneyland's Club 33 up there. What is just kind of a representation. What are we looking at today? That's why I do all this, is there's such correlations to the day that we are living in, that it's amazing. Okay, so they were known for the secret societies of the social elite. The Chaldeans ruled the land of Babylon at the end of its reign as a superpower. They were steeped in Luciferian mysticism, mystery religions. Ancient Babylon was a superpower, and the daughter of Babylon, which is really what we're dealing with now, right? We had Babylon in one time period, and as prophecy unfolds. Oh, thank you so much, out of Babylon. I appreciate that. I'm glad to be back myself. So as prophecy unfolds, we look at it. When I'm looking at prophetic things, it's almost, it reminds me of like a DNA spiral that's going up and forward, right? It's happening, but it's happening again at another time in a different way, and it's spiraling forward throughout time. It's not linear like Greek thinking, point A, point B, point C, point D. Instead, it is this upward spiral, that's moving forward. So ancient Babylon was a superpower, and the daughter of Babylon shares the same mystery religion of Lucifer worship. Okay. Jeremiah 50, verse 2, declare you among the nations and publish and set up a standard, publish and conceal not. Say, Babel is taken, Baal is confounded. Say, Baal, if you were looking at that in English, it would be the word Lord. That's how it is, and which makes our English translations very confusing at times. This is one of the reasons I love using the Sefer, is because it's differentiating these different names rather than giving, the Most High Elohim the same name that Baal has. That can get awful confusing, right? So it says Baal is confounded. Merodach is broken in pieces. Her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces. So who is Merodach? Merodach is also named Marduk, or Bel Marduk. It means, that name means death or slaughter. He's associated with a mythical divine wind weapon called Imhulu. Now, I found this interesting when I went to look up that name, that Imhulu. It's on so many like gaming platforms. Now, I don't know anything about gaming platforms. I recognize, what they are, but I've never played games on a computer, or done any kind of gaming platforms. But I found it interesting. A lot of these names, when I'm trying to figure out these ancient entities and things, what I notice is they are in our society, whether they're in DC Comics or the Comic-Con things and or certain shows, but especially in that gaming community, they're all over the place in that, which, gosh, the destruction of our nation. I put this thing up here with all the chemtrails and everything, just thinking about it, a wind weapon. Boy, isn't that a wind weapon being used against us at this point, right? Okay. Jeremiah 50, verse 3. For out of the north there comes up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall depart, both man and beast. Now, I find this really interesting, and just, hang with me a minute here. And remember, I'm a research person. I end up with more questions than I have answers. But what I like to do is give you my research so that you can come to your own conclusions or carry it further. So that's what I do when I present things. I am presenting the research that I dug into. Okay. Hey, John, turn back to truth. Very cool. Glad to have you here. That's so John's telling us, and John's a scholar on his own. I learned a lot from John. Nebuchadnezzar, I think, was one of the 7 kings mentioned in Revelation 17. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Yeah, you guys throw in anything that you think will help our study here. I really appreciate that. So I was looking at this word north. Now, what's interesting to me is if I was going to pronounce this in English, I would call it Stefan, right? Or the root word of maybe of Stephen, where Stephen comes from. But it is a zadi, a pei, a vav, and a noon. Okay. And when you look it up in the Strongs, it tells you that it means something that's hidden, something that is dark. The primitive root word removes that vav and is still pronounced Zephon. But the meaning of it is to hide by covering over, something that's like lurking in the shadow. So when I'm looking for a word picture, I start with the middle and I work my way out. So I'm looking at the middle, the pei being speech, something that's spoken, breath, what's coming forth out of a mouth, right? Can be breath, can be speech, okay, could be song, right? So I've got speech or spirit, ruach, right? Our breath. And then this zadi is usually something that's like hidden. It's like a snake in a grass, right? Which goes along with what we saw in the word Zephon to begin with. that represents north, which I'm really going somewhere with this. So there's a reason I'm like delving into it, because I'm going somewhere with this that's all over the news right now. And I hope you guys will find it as interesting and intriguing as I am finding it. So speech or spirit of hidden growth, something that's on its way coming into being, right? Something that's sprouting up. Okay. So I find this interesting, how we see Elon here. He's going, gosh, my thing's covering it over. Maybe I can remove that. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I removed the wrong thing. Let me see. I want to remove my little banner, and I'm not sure how to do it. Let me see. Because it's in my way. Well, anyway, this picture of Elon says, "Go dark MAGA." That's what it says. Okay. I can't figure out how in the world to remove that thing at this point. So anyway, it says, "Go dark MAGA." Okay. So I found that interesting. Now I wanted to look into Elon's name let's just see what's there, right? Elon, what in biblical times, and you can see the verse here. It's in Genesis 36:2. Elon is the name of a Hittite whose daughter married Esau. So in Genesis 36:2, Esau took his woman of the daughters of Canaan, Adah, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite. So that would have been a Hittite, right? And Olivama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zivon, the Hivi. Okay. So musk is, when you look at the etymology of the word musk, it's an odor secreted from the scrotum of a deer. All right. So the etymology, when you look at where in the world did this musk come from, it's Muscovy, a former principality in central Russia that formed the nucleus of the modern Russian nation. It's related to muscovite, which is a mineral used in electronics, among other things. Considering that's Elon's specialty is technology and electronics, I thought that was very interesting. So now the word MAGA, going dark MAGA, right? The word MAGA has different meanings in various languages. In Latin, MAGA is the feminine form of magus, which means a magician or a sorcerer. It refers to a woman with magical powers or someone who practiced sorcery. In Italian, maga is also used to mean sorceress or witch, retaining a similar connotation to its Latin roots. In Spanish, maga can mean sorceress or female magician, similar to its use in Latin and Italian. Other languages, in some Slavic languages, maga can refer to a magician or sorcerer, but the context and usage may vary. Overall, MAGA generally relates to themes of magic or sorcery across all of these separate languages. All right. So what have we got going on right now is, what Trump came into being our president on January 20th. We're not even 30 days away from that, today being February 13th. And Doge is well underway. Let me see if I can bring this up for you. Okay, let me get that up there. So let me stop the screen there, present. I've got a lot of things to share, which I think is really interesting. So this is just what we're seeing, on the first day, like one of the very first executive orders, right? January 20th is the day that this was put into effect, this Department of Government Efficiency established by an executive order, the president's DOGE agenda by modernizing federal technology and software to maximize governmental efficiency and productivity. All right, I'm not going through the whole thing there, but I did want to talk about this just a little bit. So, I mean, as a conservative believer in Yeshua, um, I would say that, on the surface of things, I'm looking at things and I am cheering getting rid of governmental waste, governmental overreach, governmental this, that, and the other of intrusion into our lives. But when I am looking at all the other picture pieces, there's no peace in my heart about what is going on because there's too many red flags going off with what's happening. One of the things I'm looking at, I'm thinking back to the Deagle report where it was stated before it was pulled how many of us useless eaters would be gotten rid of, right? As technology comes in on the scene. So most of the humans that are being fired, of course, the jobs are going to be taken over by AI. In fact, most things, that's what it looks like to me, is definitely getting ready to happen, is a lot of takeover by AI. Let me see if I can get up the next thing that I wanted to show you. Okay, so now this I thought was really, because I'm going somewhere with this too, because hang with me, there's so many things that have been appointed in our government and with the new administration, and it's quite interesting. So let me see if I can share this one with you. Okay. Health impact news. Let me see. Window. All right. So I thought this was interesting. This is talking about how many Christian ministries are very upset over losing their funding from the USA for drug and I won't even say the word. I don't know if YouTube will still kick us off for it or not, right? I don't know if free speech has been reestablished, but you can see they were heavily into the in the arm, the harm in the arm distribution and child trafficking. Okay, so this is what this article is talking about from February 11th, the Health Impact News, shining the light of truth into the darkness of deceit. And here it's got several very prominent Christian ministries or interfaith type ministries that are very upset that they're not going to have their funding. Okay, so let me remove that one and put back up my PowerPoint. It used to work a little different, and it was a little easier for me to switch back and forth without it taking so long. So I'm sorry it takes so long. But one thing that's been really interesting is as this is all coming into being, I was looking through at some things about Elon Musk and Starlink, and it was part of an investigation by USAID into sexual exploitation and abuse in Ukraine. Apparently, from all that I read, Elon's company funded what was it saying, like, I don't know, $8 billion worth of communication equipment to the Ukrainian army. I may be wrong on the amount, but it was a huge amount. And so he was heavily involved in all of that with funding the Ukrainian army so that they could do their war, right? Okay, so I was looking at this whole thing about the North, where we had this verse saying that when what we were just looking at, how things were going to come from the North. So I just wanted to look at some old maps just to compare. So this was the Hittite kingdom right underneath the right side here of the Black Sea. What you can see, that would have been above where Canaan was, where Jerusalem is, where modern day Israel is. And so I just wanted to compare this to what's going on modern day. So you got the Black Sea, and see the shape of Turkey here. It is almost exactly the same as this Hittite kingdom. So that was underneath the Black Sea here. So I just wanted you to kind of keep that one in mind. I think it's a puzzle piece clue. All right. So going on now to Jeremiah. Jeremiah 50, verse 4 and 5. It says, in those days and in that time, right? So now we're getting a time marker of what's about to happen. You know, we're seeing what the world stage is doing, what Babylon's, going through, and we see what Yah is going to say about his children. Okay. And that's how all of this, this prophetic word presents itself. It's looking on several different at several different people groups, right? Jeremiah 54. In those days and at that time, says Yahuah, the children of Yasharel shall come, they and the children of Yahudah together, right? We're talking reunification of the northern kingdom of Ephraim and the southern kingdom of Yahudah. They're going to come together. Going and weeping, they shall go and seek Yahweh Elohim. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward. They're looking, right? They're looking. They've got their eyes towards Zion, saying, come, let us join ourselves, right? Both groups, to El Yahuah, in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. This is mirrored over in Ezekiel when in Ezekiel 37, 16 and 17, where it says, moreover, son of Adam, take you one stick and write upon it for Yahudah and for the children of Yasharel, his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Yasharel, his companions, and join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in your hand. And these prophecies are probably like the driving force in my heart of everything that spurs me on and keeps me fired up about Yahusha and his coming kingdom and watching his people come back together, finding out who they are, because we're all scattered into the nations, finding out who really is the tribe of Yahudah, right? And where they come out from. It's going to be fascinating. Finding out who belonged to Zebulun, who belonged to Naphtali and Gad and Asher and Benjamin. And I mean, I think that this is going to be absolutely fascinating to behold. So this is a picture of the front cover of my new book. Like I said, there is a description in the, there's a link in the description of this video. And I hope that you'll get it. I hope you'll leave me a review. Let me know what you think. I tend to write the same way that I talk. So I'm presenting a lot of research, and I hope that it's a blessing to those of you who want to get it. And the reason I bring it up now is because there is so much about the coming together of those two sticks and what I can find. And there will be in all three books, because like I said, that just drives me. All right, back to Jeremiah. In Jeremiah 50, verse 6, it says, my people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray, and they have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place, right? He's saying, my people are so scattered and so confused by what the shepherds have told them that they have totally gone astray, right? They don't know where their resting place is. To me, that screams they don't understand the Shabbat. They don't understand the covenant of Shabbat, right? And that there is a covenant, there is a mark upon Yah's people celebrate the Shabbat, that honor that in their lives, right? It's reflected, the same sentiment is reflected over in Ezekiel 34, starting in verse 11 and 12. It says, for thus says Adonai Yahuah, behold, I, even I, will both search for my sheep and seek them out. As a shepherd seeks out his flock in the day that he's among his sheep that are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep and will deliver them out of all the places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. Oh, let me see. We've got a good Out of Babylon Homestead says rumor had it that USAID was funding the chemtrails. We have had a solid week of beautiful blue skies. Sadly, they were back at it this morning here in 7 North Idaho. I've been watching for it here. I'm glad you brought that up because what was it? It was Monday night. We've had a day of very bad weather on Tuesday and Wednesday here in my area, but Monday night, the moon was extremely bright, and I was shocked that even at night with the moon was showing how many chemtrails were right above my head. I was just like, darn it. I thought that maybe it would clear my skies for a few days, but they were definitely spraying us here. What's John talking about here? Okay, so how does this prophecy work in Galatians? It said, there's no longer Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female. We are all one in Messiah. Was the two-stick prophecy fulfilled in Messiah? Well, gosh, that's a great question, John. And I think it's probably like most prophecies. One of the things that I'm really seeing with that, because I've been really, trying to zero in on this myself and think about that. Here we have Mashiach come and do away with barriers. So, before in the Torah, it was don't even intermarry, was the Torah groups. Now was the rules in Torah, right? Don't even be intermarrying with anybody who is not of this Israelite bloodline. Of course, we saw that was never honored or followed, which is interesting because that's what we see a lot of. And what we learn out of a lot of the New Covenant scriptures is that no one was able to keep the law, right? No one did. And in the removal of, in the breaking of the barrier, we see, the veil that was ripped, making a way at Yahusha's death, right? And his death, burial, and resurrection, and the Holy of Holies, and making a way for us to have our own relationship with Yah, right? That all barrier had been removed. We didn't have to go through the high priest of the nation of Israel anymore. We had direct access. He's given us direct access. Okay. And so we know we've got this life in the spirit, but yet we do still see, when you look at Genesis 49, it says, gather together that I may tell you what shall befall you in the Akarit Hayamim, in the very end of days, right? So that prophecy was totally for an end time generation, and it was given to 12 tribes. Right. And it's very interesting prophetically. The more I look, the more doors open up for me. The other thing is, in the new city of Yerushalayim, there are 12 gates with the name of the tribes in them. So I think that we've got a couple of things going on. I think that there were literal promises given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to his seed line, that said these promises are to your seed line forever, right? And so I don't think that that's been done away with, right? I do believe that there are promises for that natural seed line, but most of them have rejected Messiah. So those promises are for those who believe in him, not the ones that have rejected. It's not your bloodline is not going to save you. I 100%, to me, there is one door and one door only into the new kingdom. And that is the door that is Yahusha. There is no other doorway in, right? You're not walking through a gate, no matter what tribe name is on it, without Mashiach being in your heart and in your life and being committed. This is my Lord and Savior, right? There is no other doorway in. So I think that we're looking at a couple of different things, because you get camps that say, well, all that's been done away with, and there's no relevance to it whatsoever. But then we have ancient promises that God's word is always yes and amen, and his promises never fail, right? Because he's not a liar. And there's so much at work here, and I think that the the more we stay on this track, the more that's going to be revealed. So I don't know if I answered that question well or not, John, because it's still, I'm puzzling it out myself. So I've just given you as many puzzle pieces as I can think are going through my brain as I write about it and continue to meditate on it, study it out, and see what all Yah reveals. Okay, so what I want to get to here is what we've got going on right now in what would be considered the mainstream church, and especially what our president has now set up. There's something called the NAR, the New Apostolic Reformation, and they really believe that they are in charge of bringing heaven down, right? So let's just, I found a few things. This particular one is from Wikipedia, and I'm just looking at some definitions that I got, right? So the eschatology of broader Pentecostalism is typically premillennialist, believing that biblical end times prophecies have not yet been fulfilled, and that the world will go through a period of decay, tribulation, and persecution under the reign of Antichrist, leading to Jesus Christ's return to earth to reign for 1,000 years. Okay, so that's like the broad view of the Pentecostal religion. That's what this is saying from Wikipedia, right? Now it's saying, in contrast, the NAR, which would be a subset of that Pentecostalism, right? But it's huge, right? In contrast, the NAR holds that most such prophecies have already been fulfilled in the early church, with prophecies from the movement's prophets gaining importance in its understanding of the end times. It believes that the end times will be an optimistic period of the kingdom of God being established on earth through the actions of obedient Christians, leading to the second coming. Okay. Right, let me see. John and I were kind of having this discussion. So he said, I agree, we need to keep God's commands. Thus, that is coming into the coming kingdom. Yasharel. Me too, John. Me too, John. Okay, so now I wanted to look at who was a part of this, NAR, New Apostolic Reformation, right? Who is it that's pushing this? So there's some big names in here. Bill Johnson of Bethel, Rick Joyner. I actually believe he's in North Carolina. Cindy Jacobs, Mike Bickle, who's been all over the news for IHOP for his sexual indiscretions. Sheehan, a pastor of H-Rock Church in Pasadena. C. Peter Wagner, I believe he kind of started the father figure of the NAR, right? And Paula White, who is, wow, is she in the news right now? Known for her prophetic ministry and involvement in political events, she's been associated with NAR teachings and practices. And then Lance Wallanu, a prophetic teacher and author. Okay, so I want to bring this up. So in U.S. politics, televangelist Paula White, chair of the Evangelical Advisory Board in the Trump administration, called for every demonic network that has aligned itself against the purpose, against the calling of President Trump, let it be broken, let it be torn down in the name of Jesus, right? This was in the 2020 election. And so I've got just a little clip here. And I just want to compare this woman's actions to what scripture actually says, because in Matthew 6 says, and it says, but when we pray, use not vain repetitions as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. So let's just see what we've got here. Hold on. We'll see how much of it I can stomach, actually. Let me bring it over here and bring it up for you. All right, and let me make sure that it often turns the sound off on these. Okay.
And strike and strike and strike and strike and strike and strike until you have victory. For every enemy that is aligned against you, let there be that we would strike the ground, for you will give us victory, God. I hear a sound of abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of shouting and singing. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. I hear a sound of an abundance of rain. I hear a sound of victory. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. The Lord says it is done. Now, Africa right now, Africa right now, from Africa right now. For I hear the sound of victory. I hear the sound of victory.
All right. So that's like all that I can stand of that. But I just wanted you to us to be able to compare that to the scripture. There's nothing scriptural about that. You know, that is, I just don't even, you guys can come up with your own descriptions for that. But here we have, this woman has been appointed, you know, as head of like all matters of faith in the United States of America, in a special governmental office created for her. It looks like they used to have something named something else, and now this has been recreated, and she's been put in charge of this. You know, it's certainly not a faith that I recognize or that I would want any part of. You know, so I don't know. I find it very disturbing, some of these things that are happening. So and here the reason I do this is because looking at in Jeremiah, the prophecy is that the people of Yasharel have been scattered by the shepherds, you know, that were in charge. And when you can see that kind of display going on, you can see where the confusion is coming in, because it's not scriptural. Jeremiah 50, verse 7, all that found them have devoured them. You know, that's what a lot of the NAR stuff, it's a very much a prosperity-based gospel that basically, if you're sick and you don't get well, well, then you just don't have enough faith. If you're having money problems or you're poor, well, it's because you just don't have enough faith. You're not a real believer, right? Because everything is based on the anointed offerings that you're willing to give into their ministries. They're prophets and preachers for nothing but profit, nothing but that dollar, right? All that found them have devoured them. And their adversary said, we offend not, because they've sinned against Yahuah, the habitation of justice, even Yahuah, the hope of their fathers. So there is replacement theology, okay, also known as supersessionism, or the belief that the Christian church has replaced or superseded Israel in God's plan. That's another, you know, reason that I'm like, we've got to look at all of these scriptures in context, because that is really what is being promoted in the mainstream church for the most part, is that the Jews are the only tribe that there is, and everybody else has been assimilated and are done away with. And now it's just the Christian church that has any covenant, yet they don't do any of the things that keep covenant. You know, so yeah. Let me put this up with John. Don't get me started on the Pentecostal movement. Interestingly enough, started 1901 to 1903, now the largest sect in Christianity, opening the gateways of the demonic. Absolutely. 120 years ago, interestingly enough. Well, isn't that really what we're looking at with technology coming on the scene? You know, so I think that there is a huge correlation there, John, you know? So adherents of this view believe that the church has taken the place of the Jewish people as God's chosen people, and that the many promises made to Israel in the Bible are now fulfilled in the Christian church. I had just put something in here, you know, when Michael Flynn was on his Reawaken America tour, that they were engaged in a political and spiritual war. So I just found this in on Wikipedia, and I just thought this was interesting. Mark Clatterbuck, associate professor of religion at Montclair State University, described an October 2022 Reawaken event he attended as a MAGA-driven, seething groundswell of spiritually sanctioned incitement to violence that was impossible to ignore. He wrote the event was saturated with war imagery as well as preachers engaged in violent religious rhetoric. Clatterbuck added that leaders aligned with NAR are driven by a prophetic certainty that God is commanding them to establish a militant Christian theocracy in the United States. You know what this reminds me of is, when Yahusha came onto the scene, everybody in that culture was looking for a political overthrow of Rome, their oppressors, so, time just like repeats. It's like rinse, repeat in the times. All right. So I wanted to look at a few things here. So all this stuff, huge things coming out about Trump is the GOAT, right? That he is the greatest of all time is what they're saying that this means. But I think that there is so much more symbolism going on with this. So it's got here that the reason behind the Trump goat sculpture having golden hooves and being covered in fake $100 bills with Trump's face, and the phrase "in Trump we trust" instead of "in God we trust" is part of a charity initiative called Project GOAT, Global Offensive Against Trafficking. The GOAT sculpture is meant to raise funds to combat sex trafficking and will be auctioned at a live event at Mar-a-Lago at the end of February 2025. Okay, so that's what they're saying about this. I want to look at this right here. Let me see if I can bring this one up. Let me get this over on the other thing so you can see it. Let me present this one. All right.
Think about this goat idol with golden gonads. Are you guys all on board riding this hoofed, horned, Baphomet beast? What do you think? Hey, it's covered in $100 bills. Going to make the economy great again, right? Instead of "in God we trust," we're trusting in Donald Trump. Can I get an amen from the Seven Mountain Mandate, Kingdom Now, Prosperity Gospel Christians out there?
So that's Robert from Blazing Press. He puts out some good stuff there. And now this one I thought was even better. Let me see if I bring this one up for you. Okay, so let me share this one. All right.
So apparently there is a Trump cash-covered goat idol at Mar-a-Lago. As you can see right here, the goat is covered with Trump cash and it stands on a black stone cube. I'll come back to that. Here's another angle with somebody taking a picture next to it. Now, when you zoom in on the goat, you will see Trump cash like this. And on the cash, it says, "In Trump, we trust." Who needs to trust in God when you can trust in Trump? I find the timing of this Trump cash goat idol very interesting because just a couple weeks ago, we had Donald Trump Jr. posting this with the caption, "GOAT." Now, I understand to the general public, they see this as the greatest of all time, but to the esoteric, they see something else. They see the goat as the god of all things. And in the occult, they see the as above, so below God, Baphomet, as the goat god. Within these mystery religions, they hold to this duality philosophy, the as above, so below, the black and the white. And you can also find this teaching in Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, as we saw right there with the seal of Solomon or the double triangle of Solomon, which is a representation of the God of light and the God of reflections, mercy and vengeance, the white Jehovah and the black Jehovah, going back to the duality the as above, so below, the black and white. So again, with this duality philosophy, they have the exoteric information that is known to the general population, and then they have the esoteric information that is known to a small group of people. So again, to the exoteric, to the general population, they see this as the greatest of all time, but to the esoteric, they see this as a representation of the God of all things. Now let's go back to this black stone cube that the goat stands on, which for those who know, the black cube or the black stone goes back to Saturn worship. And as we see, the black cube of Saturn can also be seen inside of the double triangle of Solomon. Not to mention, you see the black cube symbolism everywhere. Again, this goes back to the worship of Saturn, or also known as Kronos. And you'll see the rings of Saturn symbolism everywhere throughout society. Now, for those who do not know, Kronos or Saturn was the Greek god that ruled over the Golden Age. And according to Greek mythology, the Golden Age was the first of several ages of man and a period of peace, prosperity, and harmony.
I proudly proclaim that the Golden Age of America is upon us.
Now, according to Greek mythology, Kronos overthrew his father, Uranus. For those who do not know, Uranus was the god of the sky and the first ruler. And again, according to Greek mythology, Uranus was created by Gaia, the goddess of the earth, from the chaos, the primeval state of disorder. As we can see here, Gaia emerged from chaos and then birthed Uranus, the sky god. And then from Uranus, you have Kronos or Saturn overthrowing Uranus, the sky god. And then after that, we have down here, after him overthrowing Uranus, Kronos became the ruler of the Titans, and then later fathered several children, including Zeus, who would eventually overthrow him. Now, you may be asking, why am I bringing this all up? It's because I believe that Apollyon or Abaddon found in Revelation 9:11 is the god Saturn or Kronos, who was the leader of the rebellion found in Genesis 6, where we can see here in 2 Peter chapter 2, for God did not spare the angels who sinned. This is talking about Genesis 6, mating with women and bringing forth Nephilim, but cast them down to hell. Now, this word hell here is the only time that we see the word Tartarus found in the Bible. And
now, I do just want to mention, if you're not familiar with what he's talking about, in my book, I go into great detail in the beginning to look at that time period and go into a lot of the teachings of Enoch. So just so you know, you can really, take a deep dive in that if you would like to.
And again, going back to Greek mythology, we see this idea that Uranus, the sky god, hated his children and imprisoned them in Tartarus. Now, if you want to do further research on your own, I would recommend Derek Gilbert's book, The Second Coming of Saturn. Now, let's go back to Revelation 9:11 and the king of the bottomless pit, which is Abaddon, Apollyon, or in my opinion, Saturn. I wonder if it's just a coincidence that at the 9/11 memorial in New York, you have what it looks like to be a bottomless pit in the shape of a black cube. Again, the black cube goes back to the black cube of Saturn. As we can see right here at the center of this WEF meeting, you have a black cube in front of Trump and Klaus Schwab. Now, we also have the Economist magazine cover, The World Ahead of 2025, with Trump at the center. And look, we have the mark of Saturn at the top. Of course, we had this coin that was minted for Donald Trump. And again, at the top, we have Saturn. And if that was not enough, Operation You Know What had the logo of a cube. I mean, I could honestly go on and on with the symbolism here. But now the point I'm trying to make here is that we have this goat idol with dollar bills of Trump's face on it that says, "In Trump we trust," standing on a black cube or a black stone or a black rock. Makes you think of some organizations with the name Black Rock or Black Stone. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Something else I wanted to point out with this goat symbolism is the sheep and goat judgment found in Matthew 25. As we see, when Jesus comes back as a shepherd, he divides his sheep from the goats.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it from now. I will go back and add a description here because the video is just a little bit long, but I think that it's very interesting. Now, John's got another interesting comment here: half goat, half man. We're in the age of the return of the fallen watchers and hybrids and all those things. Who knows what all we're really looking at, right? Okay, So let me get rid of that and add back my screen. Okay, so here I found this very interesting. It's got, this is just a picture of those bills with "In Trump We Trust," right? And here is the new logo of the Department of Space Force. Okay, and this was something that I believe that was implemented by Trump in his first term, right? Now, if you notice, it's got the eagle symbolism, it's got the goat symbolism, it's got the Saturn symbolism, and it's got 13 stars on there. Now, a lot of this, there's a lot of symbolism that I am beginning to notice as I really dig into different things on the tribes that are relating to the tribe of Dan. And with the eagle, with the number 13, there's a lot of things, and so I'll be bringing some more information on that. I'm not going to go into more of it right now because my presentation's already longer than what I can get done, but I did just want to kind of throw that in there. It'll definitely be huge amounts of information that I found in my book Tribal Synergy when that's released. Okay, let me go forward. So Jeremiah 50, verse 8 says, remove out of the midst of Babel. So now this is the warning coming from Jeremiah, from the voice of Yahuah to his people, saying, get out of that system, get out of Babel, and go forth out of the land of the Kasdim, right? The land of the sorcerers, and be as he-goats before the flock. So what in the world is a he-goat? Well, I found that interesting. The he-goat is one of the goats that's in there amongst the sheep that is butting them, like saying, get out of here. It's Taish. Okay. And so I found that interesting because I think that a lot of us who see these things, we have so many, loved ones, family, friends, acquaintances, people we work with, different things. And we're wanting them to be able to see it and they don't. So, I mean, here is that, prophetic proclamation. It's okay if you're like butting the sheep to get them to see this, better that they get butted by you than destroyed by what's coming. So, it's just not always easy to have to be the he-goat, right? It's funny. I was looking at this and I found that my own personal shofar is very much like what's on this he-goat, and it makes a completely different sound. And I don't know if y'all can hear it, but I'll try to just give it one blast. It's a nice low sound. So, I mean, I probably just blew you guys out of the water with your speakers, but hopefully you enjoyed the blast of the shofar. Okay. Let me see. Out of Babylon. Hey, TBTT. Not sure if you are John. Oh, okay. There we go. This is for John. All right. So now, Jeremiah 50, verse 9 and 10. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babel an assembly of great nations from the north. So we're back to the north, right? From the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrow shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. Okay. And the Kazdimah shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, says Yahuah. So I found this very interesting, right? I'm looking at, we keep talking about the North Country. Now, so I am looking at this from a different view here, and I'm looking at what is north of everything. And if I'm looking at what is north of everything, I'm looking at an Arctic Circle, So I found this interesting. Let me see if I can remove that for just a minute. I have this one book that I've had for a long time. I don't know. I think that maybe when I was studying stuff from Steve Quayle years ago, that I came across this and ordered this little book. It's about a guy named Olaf, that him and his father, when he is like 17-year-old, 19-year-old, they make a trip literally into the Arctic Circle. And this would have been back in like the early 1800s that this happened. And his testimony is apparently his father dies while they're in the midst of it. And they spend years there. And when he comes back and tells about what he observed in the Arctic Circle, that he's thrown in a mental institution for 28 years. So I will put a link to this book in there too. It's certainly not it's certainly not from a believer's perspective. He absolutely proclaims that he believes God is Odin and Thor, so it's certainly not that. But I did just want to give just a little bit, just a little bit out of this for what they observed, right? This is just his testimony. It says the presence of the open sea in the Northland is also explained. Olaf Jansen claims that the northern aperture intake or hole, so to speak, is about 1,400 miles across. In connection with this, let us read what explorer Nansen writes on page 288 of his book. I've never had such a splendid sail. On to the north, steadily north, with a good wind, as fast as steam and sail can take us. An open sea, mile after mile, watch after watch, through these unknown regions, always clearer and clearer of ice. One might almost say, how long will it last? The eye always turns to the northward as one paces the bridge. It is gazing into the future, but there is always the same dark sky ahead, which means open sea. Again, the Norwood Review of England, in its issue of May 10, 1884, says, we do not admit that there is ice up to the pole. Once inside the great ice barrier, a new world breaks upon the explorer. The climate is mild like that of England, and afterward balmy as the Greek Isles. I mean, this is just really interesting to me. On another page, he's talking, this is just another little excerpt from it. It says, on this subject, William F. Warren, in his book, already cited, pages 297 and 298, says, the Arctic rocks tell of a lost Atlantis more wonderful than Plato's. The fossil ivory beds of Siberia excel everything of the kind in the world, from the days of Pliny at least. They have constantly been undergoing exploitation, and still they are the chief headquarters of supply. The remains of the mammoths are so abundant that, as Gratacap says, the northern islands of Siberia seem built up of crowded bones. Another scientific writer, speaking on the islands of New Siberia, northward of the mouth of the river Lena, uses this language. Large quantities of ivory are dug out of the ground every year. Indeed, some of the islands are believed to be nothing but an accumulation of drift timber and the bodies of mammoths and other antediluvian animals frozen together. From this, we may infer that during the years that have elapsed since the Russian conquest of Siberia, useful tusks from more than 20,000 mammoths have been collected. I mean, all through this, he's telling his story about how him and his father end up running across a ship of people that they say are from Middle Earth, right? And so they've traveled what they're saying beyond the ice caps into the Arctic Circle, and they end up in a land where they stay with people that they claim are at least 12 feet tall, and spend time with him and have a completely different language and all the things that they experience there. So anyway, I find it very interesting. I know that there's a lot going on in the Arctic Circle. There's a lot of talk of, taking over Greenland, it's just very interesting. I was looking, I read an article saying that if the United States acquires Mexico, Canada, and Greenland, that basically we will have the same amount of land that Russia currently has. Interesting. Okay. That's where I saw it. Great. I put it in here. Direct physical control over Canada and Greenland would put the U.S. on equal footing with Russia in the Arctic Circle. The race for the Arctic will be one of the greatest games of the 21st century. You know, there's got to be there's reasons for this. I don't know what all the reasons are, but there are huge reasons for this. This was a Blazing Press Telegram post that I saved. It says, Trump said Canada join USA as the 51st state for no tariffs. Trump is pushing the Club of Rome, 10 Kings of Prophecy, End of Days Kingdoms, New World Order playbook to join with Canada. There's a reason why Trump wants to buy or steal Greenland. See the Club of Rome eugenics map. The Club of Rome is known for building a population kill strategy to blame humans for pollution, global warming, and disease. Wings of the same bird. See the news from Canada. Let me see. This, let me get this over here. So this was just let me stop that one, present this. It's a lot of back and forth. All right. So here we go. Let's look at this news clip.
Chance of it ever happening. But U.S. President Donald Trump is musing once again about Canada becoming the 51st state, this time to a global audience.
We're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years.
Obviously. Trump making those claims during a virtual speech to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Trump has already floated February 1st as a possible start date for 25% tariffs on all Canadian imports, even as talks between the two countries continue in an attempt to avoid a trade war. While Canada and Mexico have both been singled out, Trump expanded his threat on Thursday, warning that all global companies that decide not to make their products in America will eventually face varying levels of tariffs.
Okay, so I mean, it's just another interesting thing that's going on right now, and I do think that it is centered in obtaining the something that has to do with the Arctic Circle. I don't know what all that is, but I find it interesting. All right, so now let's look a little further. Jeremiah 50 verses 11 through 14. Let's look here. It says, because you were glad, because you rejoiced, O destroyers of my heritage, because you are grown fat as the heifer at grass and bellow as bulls, your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bore you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. Because the wrath of Yahuah, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Everyone that goes by Babel shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babel round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she has sinned against Yahuah. Okay, so I've got, I wanted to look at this, but I'm running short on my time. Dr. Pigeon on his site, sefer.net, he's got blogs, and I'll go back and I'll add this to the description because it is well worth taking a look at. And he goes into great detail about what these Noahide laws are. And it's interesting, Trump's connection with the leaders of the Jewish leaders, you know, and here there's this kippah, and that they've spelled MAGA a mem, an aleph, a gimel, and an aleph on the kippah, right? Kippahs with Make America Great Again on there. Very interesting. But I'll go back and put these links in. So Jeremiah 50, verse 15 and 16 says, shout against her round about. She's given her hand. Her foundations are fallen. It's saying this system's not going to last. Don't buy into it. Don't be fooled by it. Her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of Yahuah. Take vengeance upon her, as she has done, do unto her. Cut off the sower from Babel, and him that handles the sickle in the time of harvest. For fear of the oppressing sword, they shall turn everyone to his people, and they shall flee everyone to his own land. I find this fascinating. You know, everybody has always wanted, all the immigrants have wanted to come to, you know, America for so long. And if this is the Babel's seat of power, because I believe Babel is bigger than just America. I believe that it incorporates, you know, most of the nations now, because I believe it has to do with technology and with AI. But I do believe that America is the seat and driving force of it. And I think that as a land, you know, in the physical, that this nation is what's going to suffer, you know, the consequences of pushing this everywhere, because America's been the superpower for quite a while now, and it's been head of really getting this set up and funding it and seeing it promoted worldwide. And it looks like here what's going to happen is people that have been here will be fleeing back to their own country and want to say, I'm not an American. That's what I see anyway. All right. So Jeremiah 50 verses 17 and 18, it says, Yasharel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. I see another connection there to the tribe of Dan. All right. And I'll get into that in my next book. Yasharel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First, the king of Ashur has devoured him. And last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, has broken his bones. Therefore, thus says Yahuah Tsava'oth, the Elohai of Yasharel, behold, I will punish the king of Babel and his land as I have punished the king of Ashur. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever watched the interview I did with Dr. Laura Sanger and Dr. Monzo. It's not available on YouTube. It's only on my Brighteon channel. But I really enjoy Dr. Laura Sanger's ministry. She's quite interesting, and she's definitely a researcher, and she writes wonderfully, and it's so enlightening, the things she comes across. So I've got it here. Her ministry is called nolongerenslaved.com, and you can read her blog post, but she is really digging into the same things that I'm digging into on this particular broadcast. And I don't have time to go and read it, but I'll go back and put it in the description. All right, Jeremiah 50, 19, and 20. And I will bring Yasharel again to his habitation, and he shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his soul shall be satisfied upon Mount Ephraim and Gilead. In those days and in that time, says Yahuah, the iniquity of Yasharel shall be sought for, and there shall be none, and the sins of Yahudah, and they shall not be found, for I will pardon them whom I reserve. So this is promises to the remnant. I find it very interesting that Mount Carmel is being protected by UNESCO at this time. So it's like a protected place on earth. And I think that it's interesting because I think Yah is having it protected for his people. Carmel, when you look at the meaning of that name in Hebrew, it is the garden of Yah. So Micah 7, 18 through 20 reminded me of that very same thing. And it said, who is an El like unto you that pardons iniquity and passes by the transgression of the remnant of his heritage? He retains not his anger forever, because he delights in mercy. He will turn again. He will have compassion upon us. He will subdue our iniquities and you will cast all of their sins into the depths of the sea. You will perform the truth to Yaakov and the mercy to Abraham, which you have sworn 7 oaths unto our fathers from the days of old. You know, that's just such a great scripture and so many wonderful promises for us in the midst of all of this happening. I think it's really important for those of us that are his to firmly keep our eyes on him and the promises that he has for us, that no matter what's coming against us, that we're to keep our eyes on him. I'm going to try to do more broadcasts on some of the things that encourage me. I'm going to be working on that and try to be on a little more often now that I've got my, life kind of arranged again to where I can do that. Jeremiah 50 verses 21 through 23, go up against the land of Merathaim, even against it and against the inhabitants of Pekod. Waste and utterly destroy after them, says Yahuah, and do according to all that I've commanded you. A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babel become a desolation among the nations? So this is how it's describing Babel. At this time, it's saying it was a hammer upon the whole earth, right? That they were destroying other nations. And when you look at how many wars we've been involved in, how many governments we've overthrown as a nation, how many injustices we have perpetrated on other nations in shoving our agenda down their throat. It's Yah's going to deal with this. Says in Jeremiah 50, 24 through 28, I have laid a snare for you, and you are also taken, O Babel, and you were not aware, right? I'm seeing this in the money system, right? I think that snare has been laid. It's on its way. And it's coming, and it's going to change everything. And it's just like everything else that's happened so far in Trump's new administration, it's going to come fast, right? I've laid a snare for you, and you are also taken, O Babel, and you were not aware. You were found and also caught because you've striven against Yahuah. Yahuah has opened his armory and has brought forth the weapons of his indignation. That's what Yah does is, just like he allowed the Assyrians to be his weapon of indignation against Israel when they were unfaithful to him. And he allowed Babel and King Nebuchadnezzar to be a weapon of indignation against the tribe of Yahudah. It's going to happen to the daughter of Babylon too at this time on the earth. It says Yahuah has opened his army and has brought forth the weapons of his indignation, for this is the work of Adonai Yahuah Tsava'oth in the land of the Kasdim. Come against her from the utmost border, open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. Slay all her bullocks, let them go down to the slaughter. Woe unto them, for their day is come, the time of their visitation. The voice of them that flee and escape out of the land of Babel, to declare in Zion the vengeance of Yahuah Eloheinu, the vengeance of his temple. There will be those of us of the remnant that escape all this. Some are appointed not to, to captivity. Some are appointed to the sword. Some are appointed and escape and a going off into the wilderness and a greater exodus. I hope I'm counted worthy to be there. Yeah, John said many years ago he did a teaching on America as Babylon. I agree, John. And I think that what I was saying too, the more that I look at it, it's the tentacles of where America has gone and other nations that are joining up. And I think it's definitely that web of connection through the internet. Jeremiah 50, 29 through 32 says, call together the archers against Babel, all ye that bend the bow, camp against it round about. Let none thereof escape. Recompense her according to her work, according to all that she has done. Do unto her, for she has been proud against El Yahuah, against the Holy One of Yasharel. Therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off. In that day, says Yahuah, behold, I'm against you, O you most proud, says Adonai Yahuah Tsava'oth. For your day is come, the time that I will visit you, and the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise them up. And I will kindle a fire in his cities, and it shall devour all round about him. So I just have to show this one. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry. I'm clicking on the wrong screen. Let me bring this over. Okay. Talk about proud. Here we go.
Nobody can do it like me. Honestly.
Nobody's stronger than me.
Nobody has better toys than I do.
There's nobody bigger or better at the military than I am.
Nobody loves the Bible more than I do. Nobody builds walls better than me. Nobody's better to people with disabilities than me.
Nobody's fighting for the veterans like I'm fighting for the veterans.
There's nobody that's done so much for equality as I have.
There's nobody more pro-Israel than I am. There's nobody more conservative than me.
There is nobody that respects women more than I do. Nobody would be tougher on ISIS than Donald Trump.
Because nobody's ever had crowds like Trump has had.
There's nobody that understands the horror of nuclear better than me.
And nobody even understands it but me. It's called devaluation, the sale of the uranium that nobody knows what it means. I know what it means.
Nobody knows more about trade than me.
Nobody knows the game better than I do.
Nobody's in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B. I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me.
Nobody knows politicians better than I do.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do. Nobody knows more about debt than I do.
Nobody knows the system better than me, which is why I alone can fix it.
Nobody can do it like me. Nobody.
So there we go. Nobody can do it quite like him. All right, let me add back my PowerPoint. I'm almost done. Thank you for hanging with me. I hope that you guys are enjoying it. That's right. Okay. So Jeremiah verses 33 and 34. Thus says Yahuah Tsava'oth, the children of Yasharel and the children of Yahudah were oppressed together, right? And all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Their Redeemer, Yahusha HaMashiach, their Redeemer is strong. Yahuah Tsava'oth is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babel. So I thought I had a note typed in here, but I wanted to talk about this. The name Yahuah Tsava'oth, it is the Lord of the host of angel armies, right? And Jeremiah is the one who uses this name for Yah more than any other book. I think it's mentioned like over 80 times, right? Yeah, let me look here. Isn't that what we're taught? American exceptionalism. It is. Our pride as a nation it's unbelievable. And that's exactly what it is, John. We're just full of pride. And then here we've got from Yahweh Elohim, well done, faithful, now remain and strengthen. Yeah, absolutely. We need to be strong, right? Jeremiah 35 and through 37 says, a sword is upon the Kasdim, says Yahuah, and upon the inhabitants of Babel, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men. A sword is upon the liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon her mighty men, right? This is the Gibborim, right? The mixture, the mingled, the the iron and the clay, right? The fallen watchers and mankind. A sword is upon liars, and they shall dote. A sword is upon our mighty men, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon their horses and upon their chariots. Everything that they think, or all their, warfare technology, right? And upon all the mingled people, right? What's happening that, with all the CRISPR technology, and this is going to be a huge push that's coming through the medical system, right? Dr. Pigeon has talked about it a lot. He's been talking about it for years. It was one of the first things that drew me to his ministry back in 2016. I happened to catch him on a show. I'd never heard of him before, and I happened to catch him on a show talking about what was coming with quantum computing and transhumanism, and it fascinated me. And I started, listening to his ministry from then, and I've learned so much. And it just drew me into so many different directions and opened up a whole new world for me, because that's where we're at, right? So a sword is upon their horses and upon their chariots and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her, and they shall become as women of her treasures, and they shall be robbed. Jeremiah 50 verses 38 and 39. A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. I mean, we had a perfect example of that not long ago when the Super Bowl played. The people in this nation are mad about their starlets and their idols, right? Therefore, the wild beast of the desert with the wild beast of the island shall dwell there, and the owl shall dwell therein, and it shall be no more inhabited forever, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Jeremiah 50 verses 40 through 42. As Elohim overthrew Sodom and Amorah and the neighbor cities thereof, says Yahuah, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of Adam dwell therein. Behold, a people shall come from the north, and a great nation, and many kings shall be raised up from the coast of the earth. With the alien disclosure and all the interest of the Arctic Circle and what's kind of mentioned in this book about there being almost like a earth underneath the surface of the earth is basically what this, where there are, where the Gibborim still are, right? I find it very interesting. I think that we're looking for the return of that. And when I read these prophecies, I can't help but see some of that language in that, right? That people coming from the north, a great nation, many kings raised up from the coast of the earth. When I think about cryogenics, and I'm looking at megalithic structures or things in the rocks that look like things have been frozen in time. I think that we're in for some things that are just going to blow our minds. What do you think? I think that that's part of what, when people see what's coming on the earth, their hearts will fail them for the fear of it. Because I don't know about you, but I haven't run into any, 12-foot, 13-foot men or women, but I'm not really looking forward to that. I think that it would definitely startle my heart. I'm glad to be a studier of Yah's word, and where he's opened these things up and beginning to understand the Gibborim. But for your average people going to a mainstream church that have not been exposed to any of this is just going to blow them away, right? All right, so Jeremiah 50 verse 42, it says, for they shall hold the bow and the lance. They are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea. Their voice, all right, roaring like the sea. Now, when we read even in Jasher with the sons in the war with the people that were north of Shechem after Shechem. That's the kings of the Emorym, which is another connection to the angelic beings, the Nephilim, that were still on the earth. And you see like the roaring and the sound, and it describes it in Jasher. You can see you're dealing with something that's not necessarily what we understand from our human perspective, but something that has been hidden from us, right? They shall hold the bow and the lance. They are cruel and will not show mercy. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses, everyone put in array, like a man to the battle against you, O daughter of Babel. The king of Babel has heard the report of them, and his hands waxed feeble. Anguish took hold of him, and pangs as a woman in travail. It says the same thing in Matthew 24. Jeremiah 50, verse 44, it says, behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of the Yarden unto the habitation of the strong, but I will make them suddenly run away from her. And who is a chosen man that I may appoint over her? For who is like me? And who will appoint me the time? And who is that shepherd that will stand before me? I put it in here in the New Living Translation too, just because sometimes I like to just get, a plainer version. Sometimes I love the Sefer, but sometimes it can be hard. So I'm just going to read it here in the New Living Translation. It says, I will come like a lion from the thickets of the Jordan, leaping on the sheep in the pasture. I will chase Babylon from its land, and I will appoint the leader of my choice. For who is like me, and who can challenge me? What ruler can oppose my will? I mean, that's very plain of Yahweh. Who's going to stand against the plans of Yah? No one, right? Jeremiah 50, verses 45 and 46. Therefore, hear ye the counsel of Yahweh, that he has taken against Babel, and his purposes, that he has purposed against the land of the Kasdim, the land of the sorcerers, the land of the magicians, right? Surely the least of the flocks shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. At the noise of the taking of Babel, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. When it talks about the capture of Israel and Amos, I mean, he gives that precursor. This was 2 years before the great earthquake, so I think that it's interesting watching, Santorini right now and all the different earthquakes going on. We are just definitely in an amazing time period. So the next time I come back, at least in this series, I'll be talking about, we'll go into Jeremiah chapter 52. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope it's a blessing to you. And I hope you'll join me. I'm going to do some presentations this week, just on some encouraging words before I get back to really digging in these. When I do these long presentations, it takes quite a bit of time to do the research and the study. But I want to fellowship with you guys more. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll try to set up a schedule so that you can know that you can meet here together and chat with each other and participate in the comments. Thank you so much, especially John, for all your input today. I really appreciate it. All right. Well, blessings to you guys. Let me see if I can find my ending screen thing here. I've totally changed things, and it's like I've lost what I do to play my intros and exits and everything. I don't know why moving ended up taking so long, but anyway, shalom for now.